London, 1944. A low, guttural droning sound slices through the night. It's a sound that promises devastation, a mechanical heartbeat thrumming above the city. Then, the engine cuts out. Silence. A terrifying, absolute silence. That means you have agonizing seconds before the world around you explodes. Black Friday, 2025, 6 p.m. The LED lights on my modeling desk flicker to life, slicing through the late autumn evening darkness. On my desk, a box. Tamiya's 1/48th scale Fleischner FI 103, or as the Allies called it, the V1, the buzz bomb. For the past 48 caffeine-soaked hours, I've been on a mission to capture that dread in a model you can hold in one hand. It's been a sprint, a desperate dash against the clock, much like the original V1s themselves. I've set myself a little Thanksgiving weekend challenge. The part count is low, 17 parts, one sprue. No pilot, of course, because the real thing didn't need one. It was an automated instrument of destruction, cold and impersonal. The world's first cruise missile. I popped the first piece off the plastic runner, the crisp plastic giving away with a satisfying click, click. And already I feel it, the race. Can a hobby knife truly outrun history? Can I condense the immense human story, the engineering marvel, and the sheer terror of this weapon into a mere 2 days? The challenge isn't just about assembly, it's about connection. I carefully glued a fuselage halves together, watching the seam disappear, like a secret being swallowed by the plastic. While the cement sets, I pull up my files, digital ghosts of the past. The numbers hit me with the force of a physical blow. Almost 30,000 of these doodlebugs were built from August 1944 until near the end of the war for Germany, sometime in March of 1945. Each one a testament to the wartime industrial might, requiring about 350 man-hours to construct. In the 3 months they were deployed against England, they were nearly as effective as the 12-month Blitz campaign in terms of casualty rates per tons of bombs and structure damage or destruction, while at the same time forcing the Allies to divert assets to defense after the start of the D-Day campaign. The wings and horizontal stabilizers slide into the fuselage with almost unsettling ease. Tamiya has a tab and pin arrangement that only allow you to put these parts in one way. Much like that of the V1's deceptive simplicity, they almost snap into place. On the real weapon, these were originally crafted from plywood, a testament to the desperate ingenuity born of wartime shortages. But as spruce, the preferred wood for plywood, became scarce, German engineers pivoted to sheet metal. Germany, by 1944, was rationing everything. Food, fuel, hope. Everything, it seemed, except desperation. That boundless, driving desperation fueled its war machines, forcing innovation even in the face of overwhelming odds. Time to let the cement cure and catch some shut-eye. Saturday dawns, bringing with it the heart of the beast, the Argus AS 014 pulsejet. In the model kit, it's a beautifully molded single-piece intake. In reality, it was a marvel of crude, effective engineering. Essentially, a metal straw with a shutter that flapped 50 times a second, creating that infamous, terrifying buzz. I painted the shutter black, and then came back with a heavy dry brush of Army Painter's gunmetal. This was followed by a lighter, brighter aluminum from Vallejo's Metal Air series to pick out the uppermost surfaces. This, again, was done with a very, very light dry brush. You didn't want to overdo it. No weathering or heat staining, as these were single-use weapons. In June of 1944 through to the end of March 1945, the sound of that pulse jet, that distinctive buzz, meant you were safe, for the moment at least. As long as you could hear it, the V1 was still flying, still passing overhead. It was a macabre lullaby, a perverse comfort, but then it would cut off. The buzz would cease, plunging the city or the port or the target area into a terrifying, pregnant silence. That silence was the cue. It was the signal to dive under a table, beneath a bed, or even, in a moment of desperate communal fear, into the arms of a stranger. With the little V1 buzz bomb completely assembled. All I had to do to finish up the day was get it in primer. As the first rays of sunshine come through my window Sunday morning, the gray primer coat has dried. I start the painting process with an overall coat of RLM 84, a blue-gray color that the Luftwaffe has switched to for late war camouflage. I painted the entire structure, top and bottom, in this color. Off camera, I taped off part of the front nose section and sprayed that section on the bottom with an earlier war RLM 71 light blue paint. This section will be painted as if it was pulled from an earlier rocket, just to illustrate the desperation of the early 1945 Wehrmacht. So this front section, along with the wings, also received the top coat of RLM 83, which is a dark green-brown color. To further show the desperation, the vane nose cone was sprayed with an armor brown, an anti-corrosion primer used by the Germans throughout the war. There was no time to paint the fuse before getting it ready to launch. The little propeller on the nose is actually a vane animator, and it actually helps determine the general area for bombing. Before launch, the crew would set the internal odometer that counted down as the vane spun. They had to figure the value based on wind speed and distance, and while not a modern-day pinpoint accuracy, it did get the payload close enough. When the count reached 0, 2 detonating bolts were fired, releasing the elevator spoilers as well as jamming the servo linkage to the elevator and the rudder. This was intended to put the weapon into a powered, steep dive. But in actuality, that steep dive cut off the fuel to the engine. This is what caused that fear-inducing silence that the Vengeance weapon became known for. Archival pictures of the V-1s often show them late in the war painted in a mottled green, sometimes with hastily applied camouflage, again reflecting their rushed production. They were churned out of tunnels, sometimes even forests, then quickly ready for launch. There was no time for pristine finishes, no luxury for perfection. These were expendable, mass-produced weapons designed to inflict maximum terror with minimum fuss. To mimic this frantic camouflage, I loaded the airbrush with RLM 82, a light green late war Luftwaffe color. I turned the air compressor down to a low air pressure, and using a very light trigger pull, I freehand the roughly applied camouflage pattern. I did use some reference photos for typical shapes and locations, but mostly I just ran with what looked good to my eye. Tamiya, bless their attention to detail, throws in a twin-wheeled dolly. I built it, assembling the delicate plastic parts, feeling a strange sense of connection to the anonymous engineers who designed the real thing. It's a simple design, and there are no brakes on the free rolling wheels. Luckily for me, I glued mine in place, but the real thing would need wheel chocks to keep the dolly and its payload in place and not rolling away. Before painting, I had one more modification. I wanted to make the metal bits look more like the hollow square tubes the Germans used. Starting with a pin vise and a small pin drill, I drilled a hole in the 4 ends. Then I came back with a sharp hobby knife and carved the corners into a square. Painting started with an armor brown color, a basic German anti-corrosion pigment used in World War II. Once it was dry, it was time to add some salt to the frame. Yes, I said salt. Using a wet brush, I selectively dabbed areas I thought the paint would be chipped from the dolly, as these simple carts got a lot of use, moving the missiles around for final assembly, setting the internal gyros prior to launch, and finally pushing it out to the launch rails. To make the salt chipping work, we need to let the water completely evaporate after sprinkling the salt over the areas we want to chip. Once the base is set and prepared, we apply the top coat. In this case, I chose dark yellow, which was the base coat of most late war German vehicles. Lots of desert colors left over after leaving North Africa, I suspect. Anyway, here comes the magic. Re-wetting the salt causes the salt to go back into solution, taking the top layer of paint with it. This leaves the darker brown undercoat showing through as chipped paint. It's a simple technique that makes a big impact. Just remember to let the top coat dry completely as well, and the acrylic paint will allow the water, moisture, to transport through and reactivate the salt. Early evening light is fading on Sunday evening. Time to bring it all together. The now decaled V1 sitting on its weathered and used worn dolly, chalked in place on a simple diorama cement base. I did it. I finished a simple 1/48 scale model over the long holiday weekend. It looks almost toy-like compared to the other military vehicles and planes I've built. The innocent appearance is a cruel deception, a reminder that even the most mundane objects can embody profound historical weight. Next month is Christmas, and hopefully I'll get some model kits under the Christmas tree, maybe something that lands on carrier decks instead of apartment buildings. Until then, keep your engines running and stay curious.